Shall we start? Okay. So thank you for everyone coming for the evening session. I'm actually, you may remember me, I'm Craig. Across from me is Rebecca.
Hi, everyone.
And we're going to be co-moderating this panel. I just wanted to start because, you know, it seems like these curatorial statements are actually pretty damn useful. So I thought I would just read a few sentences. Say, more and more artists working in Asia do not concern themselves with the conservation of their work, nor their place within a canonical range, Western or otherwise. Instead, many are reimagining the world through a process-oriented approach, treating everything as materials. Let's see, subaltern research and visions for inclusivity address the gaps and erasures in modern society through formation of new aesthetic strategies. So just establishing that as context, ideas I heard there were the question of canon, or multiple canons, or non-canon, getting rid of the canon, process orientation, subaltern research. What's subaltern? Maybe something like Audre Lorde's Undersong, that kind of idea. Visions for inclusivity as opposed to exclusivity, gaps and erasures in society, and new aesthetic strategies. So with that, we just saw your work, but you know, we didn't really have a chance to talk to you about your work in the presence of your work, and I just wanted to give each artist an opportunity to give us maybe a little bit of the background of that work. How did that work come about? Because I always like the creation story. How did the work, you know, come into your mind, and how did it unfold in your creative process? So, Rana, could we start with you?
May I speak in Farsi because my English is not that good and some will translate it. Okay. کارای من بیشتر جمع‌آوری آتش‌خالایی تو خیابونه. یعنی من وقتی رانندگی میکنم یا راه میرم هر چی میبینم برمیدارم، بعد میبرم توی کارگاه و بعد از یه مدتی شروع میکنم ازشون ساختن هر چیزی.
My work is mostly like gathering trash and garbage from here and there while I drive throughout the city. When I encounter interesting things, I just pick them up and bring them to my studio, and I collect them there and I keep them there, and little by little I start working with them, and that's my studio practice.
And توی این کار کله پاچه رو استفاده کردم که یکی از غذاهای معمول و پرطرفدار ایرانیه که به خاطر این انتخابش کردم چون می‌خواستم اینو نشون بدم که آدما تو این یک سال اخیر، 2 سال اخیر به خاطر شرایط اقتصادی، سیاسی، هر چیزی دچار یک سری زندگی حیوانبار یا یه حالت بی احساسی شدن و خواستم گوسفند رو چی؟
So the work that you see here is the work about it's related to the food that is common in Iran called kalle pache. It's basically brain and feet, literally translated head and foot. Yeah, literally translated is head and foot. So and I wanted to show I wanted to show the senselessness and carelessness that in the last numbness that in the last 2 years with the economic situation people are facing.
و همین اینا رو روی هم گذاشتم و همین رو خواستم نشون بدم.
So these
در واقع انگار افتادن به حالت خیلی بی استفاده روی هم چیده شدن، انبار شدن.
So basically they are like useless things that are just fallen on top of each other and piled up where you see them.
So this is a common dish that you say, but also in the text there's reference this notion of the ritual feasts or ritual ceremonies and the dishes that we eat, and the notion of, so for instance, how do you think about the head and the feet and how this dish came about, the history of the dish or its significance?
دقیقاً چون این یه غذای خیلی ارزونی بوده که قدیما کارگرا می‌خوردن، ولی امروزه یه غذای تقریباً گرونی شده که شاید اون کارگرا نتونن اون غذا رو بخورن دیگه. دقیقاً این هم نکته خوبیه چون میتونه اشاره کنه که چقدر زندگی سخت‌تر شده، اون خالص یا راحتیشو از دست داده و خلوصش از دست داده.
Exactly, it is related to this in a way, and historically this food has been something that poor people could afford to eat, but over time it has turned into something that poor people cannot afford to buy anymore. So the purity as an idea is kind of lost in the approach to this, what would you say? So the purity in what was assumed to be purity is also kind of like worn out, and one through looking at this can see this produces the sensation for it.
Thank you. So Haiyang, I wanted to talk a little bit about your process too, because I know it's a very interesting, and it takes a long time to build one of your video animations. The animation we saw was about, you said 2 minutes?
Yeah.
And it's about 1,000 frames, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did, and we saw maybe 10 paintings?
Yeah.
And then, but there's a total of 50 paintings that were part of that.
Totally 50.
So tell me how you get from 50 paintings to 1,000 frames.
Okay. Before started, I want to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Haiyang Wang. I'm from China, Beijing. This is actually my first time speaking English in front of a lot of people. So I'm a little bit shy, so I take my glass off. So I cannot see anybody of you. So right now, I pretend no, you are not exist. My work, I usually work with 2 medium, painting and video. And sometimes I mix them together. And I guess it's called animation. And this work I showed here, actually is I created this style like many years ago. And about this work, I would love to introduce a bit background about the style, how to it developed. At first, I was a painter for many years. I am a painter for many years. So I can't get bored to paint like the way you think about something in your mind and put it on the canvas or the paper. So one day I found a technique, totally by random. You can use pastel drawing on sandpaper, and you can use eraser to erase the marks, totally erase every marks. So to come to an idea, how about I put a sandpaper in front of me, doing a painting, and at the same time, I put a camera behind of me, so I can paint totally by random some things, different objects, and make it as animation, make it as a painting, but in the same time, it can record everything. So at the end, it's animation, also it's a painting. Because I was thinking about the the way I doing painting is so boring. I want to push it something, develop something more boundary of the painting format. So I really enjoy the use animation, the form. It's kind of like a bridge between the paintings and the video. So yeah, and slowly I created a style like a little bit rough. It's something, because you're drawing, you cannot draw so clear like a digital things. So all my animations is almost no digital. I use the less digital as I can. It's like stop motion animation. I take pictures and take it together. So at the end, the style is not so clean. It's kind of like a cage and rough, and I really enjoy it because a lot of mistake in it. So the mistake for me is the most amazing part. So it makes the artwork alive. It's not digital. It's kind of like human. I don't look like my painting as a painting. For me, it's a human. It's really interesting. It's an animal.
So Haiyang, I have another question though. The images that you've created are, I don't know, they're quite mysterious. I mean, you look at them and there's so many ways to interpret them. Where do the images from your videos come from?
Most come from random. So random things and something from imagination, or something from I don't know. It's just come from random. Yeah.
So the images come from yourself. They come out of your imagination.
Yeah.
But there's actually somewhat of a narrative going on in your video. It doesn't unfold randomly.
Yeah.
So where does the story come from?
Actually, there's no storyline. All the works is I make the picture image first. I have a lot of images, so I put it. As this work shows there, it takes 4 years, and no videos at all. Then I take everything together. I build a relationship between them. I trying to build found a logic in my own way to build the video.
So the narrative, you say there's no overarching narrative, but what there is a series of relationships from image to image. There's a set of relationships.
Yeah.
And then the relationship is how you get from one image to the next.
Oh, it's difficult. Sometimes it's take me a long time. I watch it many every day and think about how to transform it. And I think this is the key. I really enjoy it because for me, the things here, it's the object that already exists. It's no need to for artists. No need to the content in the art piece. No need to show it again. It's already exists. And the part that excites me is how to find how to build a relationship between them and find a secret relationship between them.
So actually, the artistic process is actually what helps you discover and then therefore reveal what the relationship is.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So the process
Yeah.
that you use to actually work with the image as it transforms one to the other helps reveal the relationship.
Sort of the rawness of the process is mirrored in the rawness of the narrative. How you sort of explore them through your own hand, through your own imagination, and let it reveal itself and unveil itself through the process.
所以你的艺术过程，从你的艺术过程出来，这个每一图跟别的图的关系，所以你的艺术过程是让那个关系出来，是这样的，或者是你的关系，你想到这个关系，然后你想一个办法把一个图变成另外一个图。
No. I think the transformation from one image to another image is not something I'm doing. As this transfer is the logic, how to process total from this logic to that logic, and then build and then found another logic in later and rebuild it. So this is
So it's the image first and the concept first, then the logical relationship
Yeah,
you
yeah.
discover, and then from there, the transformation process happens.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's somehow an organic process, but that's also methodical as it moves from one phase to the next. You let it happen naturally, but then it leads you from one image to the next based on the structure you're seeing. And that's how it reveals itself.
Oh, I forgot what to say. I say it again.
That's okay. But sort of the idea that you're both free form at one time and letting things happen, but also then it becomes more of a structured process as it reveals itself to you, and one image leads you to the next. There's a logic in how you choose which image comes next, right? You see the relationship from one to the next
Yeah, yeah.
as you're doing the work.
Yeah, I like something, you know, just created the logic in my own way.
Yeah.
That's the key. I just want to doing these things. Oh, okay, you can see the information transformation. Maybe this is only I can doing this in this way, so transformation.
And I love how you're using a very modern medium, but still asserting yourself into the process very thoroughly, making sure it's not too sleek, that it's still very much about your imagination, about your structure and your processes, and not sort of handing that over to sort of graphic animation in a more typical sense.
Yeah, I like putting some action in this painting or in this video process. So it makes more interesting for me. Mm-hmm. I think only just hanging out painting is quite boring for me. Yeah.
So with that, Bingyi, I wanted to open things up for you and just talk a bit about what you created in these films. And I'm specifically wondering if you could talk to us about the filming and the script writing process, how that worked, and maybe a little bit about how the notion of poetry and how that's related to script writing.
The film itself has a script of 1,600 line of poem as a script. It took me 4 years to go back, revisit, and recompose the script over and over again as I discover the script as I was filming it. So this was the most luxurious process. You go there without a script and work with the finest actors. They come on location. You just basically say, okay, do it. And trust me, that's not easy. I mean, to this day, Ni Dahong still hates me. He wouldn't talk to me. So the price of poetry in life is expensive. If we believe in poetry, we would never be apart from the ones we love. But in truth, we do. The price of poetry is expensive in other terms, such as time. I could spend 5 years making a painting, which you know I usually do. The only thing that wouldn't lie to me is time. Eventually, time tells us what it is. That is, will always be there for us. But the trick is, how do you have sex with time? That is how the story is told in this piece. So I would return to time, to that day when I shot a 30-minute long, completely improvised scene of masturbation on film. And trust me, that actress was never trained. She was an entrepreneur selling cashmere to millions of people. And that day, she had a ton of alcohol. And 30 minutes of that, I can only use one word to describe it: painful. My entire crew watched her, surrounded her, documented her. And at the very last bit, she just completely, emotionally, physically broke down. And the screaming that came out of her was so painful. That pain not only had something to do with the sadness in history, in time, in man, in the lack of love, or even the possibility of finding true love. On the surface, the actress herself is a sign of access and success. She was beautiful, she was more than wealthy. She was everything a human or a woman could ever want it to be. But in that moment when she was screaming in pain, I saw what suffering is to her and to myself. As contemporary as we can be, what is really art? Contemporary might mean conceptual, might mean a rebuttal, might mean endless amount of talks and discourses. But what is art? Art is the incessant search for the answers, happiness, dealing with suffering, facing that loss every single day and knowing that you will never get it. And in that moment of her screaming, I think she wrote all my poems, all the womanhood, all the stifled voices of women living in my time, my place, which is only 1 kilometer from Forbidden City. So now coming here, all the masturbation scene has been out. You will never see them. You can only see it in my smile. Or in the expensive price of so-called happiness, or so-called contemporary, or so-called poetry. Now I speak of this without any sense of irony. In the heart of all of that, it is the most sweet, tender, delicate suffering.
Incredibly beautiful and poignant to think about this. I love the idea of searching for answers and this aspect of the work as it's trying to find its own answers and let them evolve in and of themselves, and then you sort of write the questions later as you formulate the script. But I'm curious, when you first start working with the actor, what's the prompt? What's the question? What do you say to them to elicit either this type of emotional response to get at this rawness, or how are you letting it unfold? How are you encouraging it?
I think only a woman would ask in such a straightforward way and use the word raw. And it's true that most sensual, sweet, sexual, physical, impulsive, seductive love is purely raw, is purely dangerous, which means that we'll never be married to someone we truly love. So as a woman, we all know how it feels like to be trapped in our head. What's in our head is always bigger than what's right in front of us. So when I explained this to her, I said, you are in love with a city whose name is Beiping. Now, that is the capital city of the nationalist China. I have no political standing on this. All I'm saying is, imagine if you're in love with time. Something exists to everybody, but never quite exists in reality. How do you have sex with him? The answer is very natural: masturbation.
Absolutely.
And that becomes completely hopeless for her. So in turn, she asked me for the most powerful whiskey, a full bottle of it. And she drank it all. So when we say the word raw is exactly raw as that whiskey, she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. But she really knew how it's like to be trapped in her head, as I know every day of my own lives. So what's in my head is forever going to be bigger, more real, more intimate to me as a person than what stands right in front of me. Now, I'm not just talking about love, I'm talking about ideology. I'm talking about the city that I live in where you have 6 rings, but still no hope for traffic at any time. How could you live there? And in the city where I live, even breathing is expensive. I have to buy the most expensive mask and feel like choked by stocking. So we're always stuck in between. And sex is, with time, is just about that.
Absolutely. I mean, when you were talking, I was sort of reminded of Flaubert and sentimental education and this idea of the best thing in our life being the thing that never happened to us, right? Because it's the only thing that will never disappoint us. And so this idea of this woman kind of struggling with this notion that she'll never have what she really, really wants because it's either too painful or it's just too real or too removed or not what she thinks it is, you know, and how you unpack that narrative as you create it.
Or it's just too incorrect.
Yeah, it's fake. It's sort of a fictionalized fairy tale that we've all built. And that sort of moment in womanhood when you realize it's a fairy tale that won't come true. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. That moment when you realize it will never come true, and that's how you got to that raw emotion. I think that's incredible and such a talent to be able to elicit that sort of reality from someone and that kind of pain. Sorry, Craig, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Hasano? Oh, Bachman's coming. Oh, great, okay. So, Hasano, I was wondering...
You're up, buddy.
So you have on display 40 amazing drawings.
Thank you.
Painting drawings. And what I was wondering is you know, the imagery is so striking, but also incredibly bewildering. And I was wondering if you could talk about where those images come from.
The story started actually when my mom passed away. And then I started to going back to my hometown. And through the journey and going home, photograph and collect all the ceramics or plates, clothes that she has. I remember that lots of stories going on in my house. So one of the story that really sparked me is a story about a racial riot during my family life in a small island. It's called Panko. So all my siblings have been born and bred there. I'm the only one who live in who was born in mainland. So after 2 years of Malaysia gained independence in 57, so in 59, they have a small spark of riots are happening in that particular island. So the island are quite small. I mean, the people who lives there, I mean, like not under 3,000, I guess, during that time, or below than that. So yeah, when that things happen, you cannot go anywhere. So you just keep running and circling in that particular island alone. And the island is not so big. And during that time, you imagine like there's no boats coming in and coming out. And the building all have been burned. And the most problematic is my mom is Chinese. And the racial riot happened between Chinese and the majority of Malaysia, which is Malay. So yeah, that particular story have never been reported in our national radio or newspaper archive or whatsoever. I just gather it from the information from my father's friend and from my mom and I mean the whole people who used to live there. So yeah, the baggage that she carry and trauma that she have always keep reminding me of you must prepare yourself if anything happen to you. I mean, like, keep telling me of lots of, and so many stories about her during her childhood and until, yeah, during her time in that particular island. Yeah, so from there, I started to write a story. Before that, I used to do lots of sketches. I mean, like, I shift my entire discipline. I start into writings. So it's not like very long essay. I mean, like, just a few paragraphs here and there. And then I started to build the topography of that island. I combine it. I used to visit there a few times. I mean, because my father used to work there as in an ice factory. So I used to visit him before he retired. So from there, I built the topography from a tropical island, and I combined it with a concept of video game in '87. It's called Contra. The engineer is coming from Konami company. So that particular game is kind of the background of that game used to have like a very tropical jungle, waterfalls, secret labs, and also snowy mountain. So that's why you saw like there's so many kind of topography like here and there fluctuate or kind of weird somewhere. Yeah. So
this is a game that you used to play.
Actually, we don't have enough money to buy that console. So yeah, I've got a few chances to play illegally somewhere like in back at the shops somewhere. Yeah.
I was struck when I was looking at your work, thinking about this idea of undocumented histories. And yesterday, Himan's talk, he brought up this notion that sort of historical narratives are just things we agree to, right? We all collectively agree to a narrative that becomes our national sort of identity or how we look back on history. And there's elements of fact and element of fiction there, right? Some truth and some things that are either folklore or myth or just downright made up and sort of agreed to. I'm curious how you think about fact and fiction in your work. You know, these are stories that were passed on to you by your mother about these atrocities. How close did you try and stay to the stories she told you? How much did you insert your own imagination or develop the narrative into other things you'd heard? You know, just I'm curious about that element of fact versus fiction.
I think, I'm borrowing a lot from science fiction, very 80s science fiction. So it's kind of creating another layers of reality of it because it's kind of very hard to remember it in a very factual way. So the best way, I mean, I'm also using a lot of fictional stuff, I mean, on daily basis. It's just like to get rid of just like to have another space to relax somehow. Yeah. So my mom story is just a point of departure. I mean, like maybe 30% from her, so 70% I put so many layers on it on the stories. So somehow it gets blurred, and in fact, from left to right, if you see the drawing, at the end of it, it's just like kind of very absurd kind of look. I mean, the figures are turned into something else, like mutating. It's kind of metaphor of you don't have a proper answer on it. Yeah.
We were there together. I like what Sam said about it. It's like a personal mythology towards the end. So anyway, thank you. Sam mentioned that towards the end, it's like almost a personal mythology. It's mutated to the point where it becomes kind of like a higher, almost abstracted.
Yeah.
Okay, and then So last, but certainly not least, Bahman, it was great that you could actually join us. You presented us with the most extraordinary series of images, series of paintings. Half the time I look at it and I know, evolution is an idea that you're working with, but I see, us, okay, but I see an entire genetic and evolutionary history presented in your work. But then I also see you, because a lot, if not all, of the paintings are a form of self-portraiture, are they not?
Yeah. In fact, this series, the work of this series comes from anthropology, and it's the best way to say it is paleoanthropology, or as you said, the evolution of human. Yes, I think in this series I collect the various of some creature, and in a similar treatment, in a similar behavior, I try to collect some works with different technique, and also I can say with a variety of technique, and this variation is the same as that variation in the nature, and so.
So I understand many of the paintings are on photographic paper. Is that right?
Some of them are in photographic paper, because photographic paper for me is a little like something, some evidence, some scientific evidence, And for me, photography is, in comparison with painting, photography is more realistic. And also I use, in this photographic paper, I work this work, I do this work on their red light, for photography. And in that situation, because the photographic paper is sensitive, light sensitive, as you know. And because of that, I had to do these under the red. And after the painting, I put this photographic paper in the photographic fixer, and after that I saved them. But one of the work in this series, this process doesn't do for that, and in the first day, this photographic was photographic paper was yellow, and now you can recognize this photographic became to be dark, and you can see this work is so something like black color.
So it's changing right now. Actually, in the gallery right now, it's still changing.
Yes, you can say this is a kind of process art.
And then I noticed many of the works are on pressed particle board. Is that right? The one's on the pedestal, right?
Yeah. Some of them are on the wood. Yes, these wooden works is, for me, is something like fossil. And fossil refer me to that evolution, because the fossil and modern genetic fossil and modern genetic are the most significant thing in evolution as a science, and also you can recognize the shape of this wood. I try to make this wood, I transform this wood to something like book. The same as photographic paper is something evidence, and I mean something scientific evidence, and just it.
Thank you. So, how much time do we have time for questions?
We're running a bit out of time, but I would like to just give a chance for you are on stage to maybe just connect the three artists' works, and Ali is not able to join us. I think something has come up for him, either he's ill or, and I think it's important if it's possible for you to say something that maybe enlightens us a little bit more. And then right after that, I would like to give also the mic right here in the audience to Zulaikha Shirzad, who is part of the pop-ups of 46. I'm getting mixed up with those two numbers. And for some reason, there was a misunderstanding and she didn't make it in the panel in the morning. And as in a way, she absolutely also fits within this particular panel as well. So I just want to give her a chance to say a few things as well. Thanks. Okay.
But first of all, thank you, Leeza. It's really an honor to be here and being part of such a great group of artists and active being. For me, simply, I think the process, I would make it very short and simple. It was my connection to Afghanistan. I think going back to Afghanistan wasn't really easy for anyone. So this work is a way to connect myself to my culture, discovering my own culture on myself. On textile has been the surface that I have been using, the materiality. The calligraphy has been somehow the message that I've been hearing in Afghanistan. I think one of the pieces that has the word soul, which is peace. It's almost like a prayer that I feel within myself on the people. So somehow it's a metaphor. It's a reflection of our inner self that kind of projects outside. On clothing has been always for me as like our first layer of identity somehow. So we know in Afghanistan, the identity of the woman has, with the Taliban, all of that got to nothing. And how do you build that? So for me, it has this kind of very abstract quote that all very similar, but somehow each of them try to bring something that is within, I would say, the femininity, nature, the words, the prayer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Sam had a really interesting observation about everybody's works. I just wanted to let him speak.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be back again on the stage. I'm sorry for the audience to need to listen to me twice, but as we were walking through the exhibition with everybody, and as I listen to you right now with the word choice that you just explained next to the installation, animation, the episode, the personal myths, and the strata, I was asking the artists and myself as well as you, the collection, I thought, at the end of the day will be significantly the collection that we're talking about only if the cinematic concept of editing will be thought about. And I think in all the works, I started thinking about it when I looked at your paintings next to the animation and the way you just talked about how your imagination edits, if I'm right, the way that things go on, you have to reflect and look at them, the way Rana looks at the rituals and the found object, but then also the possibility of remaking the objects, and the film, the poetry, the writing of the poetry, which you just performed also for us again. I think you edited the panel so fantastically, but also our emotions were edited in a way. And also with the personal myths, the temporality, I just ask you how these are not only, your works are not just starting from A to Z, they are of course taking from certain time frames, but then the way you put them there, it's not just compilation, they have this mythic cycle. And the mentioning of the book, the photographic paper, the painting, and the paintings that are on layering and re-layering, if that is even a word, I thought that it would be meaningful to mention how editing in the way of Godard probably, or the on-making that everybody here does in a way, might be like the common aspect of all their works. So that's what I wanted to
Leeza, you
say.
mentioned that curation is about discriminating. It's about selecting out. And I think that, you know, many of the processes, if you have a process-based practice, actually an enormous part of what you're doing is taking out.
Kill your darlings, right?
There was a phrase used earlier today, running with time, that I think is, you know, really, really poignant for all of us to think about in our lives. But I think the element of time and how it plays out in each of your works really is one of the things that tied them all together for me. How you're reconciling past, present, and future, how you're sort of reconciling time, reflecting on time, subjugating time in some ways, and kind of controlling it, editing it, as Sam was just saying, and really mastering time and recreating it in your own way and in your own narratives that reflect the message you want to deliver rather than the facts of time. And the passage of time being sort of sped up in some of your works through thousands of images, sort of slowed down through the sort of scapegoat sculptures as we stop and reflect on the passage of time and death that leads to the carcass, that we then reflect on, you know, the passage of time that led from your mother's experiences to telling you the stories to later when you're then reflecting back on them, and then now as we see the abbreviated version of that time and that memory in what you've chosen to share with us, and then your look at the entire evolution of time, you know, taking us back to the sort of first Adam and then bringing it all the way to yourself and sort of ellipsing that time from the beginning to the now in this, and encapsulating it in that one image that's ephemeral and disappears or evolves and becomes something different while we look at it and while we talk. And I just think that beautiful element of process of time and of self-revelation and mastery of time is really incredible in all of your work.